is the Rangers Journal Night.
Hello and welcome everyone to the Rangers Journal. This is a pretty regular news show, Cammy. I think it's fair to say we're regular at it now. We can't always get our ducks in a row sometimes with what time we start it at, but we're here to talk about the news, we're here to talk about football, real football finally being back, and being back at the stadium as well. So how are you this evening, mate?
I think you echo what I'm just looking forward to getting back. International breaks. That's the last international break now until March. So we've got a run of 3 months pretty much of no interruptions. Just this is starting to approach the business end of the season, as they say, you know. So huge schedule coming up over the next wee while, and talking about the football and hopefully Rangers winning games of football. I'm very repetitive with regard to that, but if Rangers are winning, then things are so much easier.
You're right, mate. You're right. I've just been away. If anybody caught one of the pods I was on when over the last couple of weeks of the international break, so I feel I've had a break away from everything football related, because to be honest, mate, I couldn't even watch the Scotland games with the signal on the boat I was on. So talking about Rangers, glad to be back. I'm glad to be on with you again, mate. Thank you very much for joining me. So the first thing we wanted to touch on when we're talking about what we're going to talk about in the pod was really the latest news first. So that was the press conferences today, and I'll let you talk about Czerny, what he said, and also what the manager said. But the main news for me, just because he was starting to come into a kind of good run of form or a good, some action, was Casemiro. So he's apparently going for a scan over the weekend. It looks bad though, doesn't it? He looked uncomfortable when he came off.
Do you know what's funny? I was keeping a wee track on the friendlies, and I was like, oh, he got subbed on after like 15 minutes and then subbed off. And at that point, I wasn't on social media, and straight away you go, that's strange when somebody's been subbed on then subbed off, unless they're having an absolute shocker of a game. And then obviously the clip doesn't look good. The reaction of the player looks, I think it tells its own story. He's had knee problems previously. I think he knows himself. The manager, I think, has said it's a long-term injury. If we see him play in a blue jersey again, I think I'll be surprised. I hope the scan isn't as bad as we fear it will be, because he certainly is a player that has shown up well, hasn't had massive opportunity across the last 2 or 3 months, but when he's played, he's showed up well, and I think we'll go on to obviously talk about it in more detail, but it just sums up our luck with regard to injuries. It's very rarely does a player get a simple injury. It's always a season ender or something along those lines. So disappointing for the player. I hope it's not as serious, because he's obviously he's the main concern. We're concerned about Rangers, but he's only a young guy making his way in the game, and picking up an injury at such a knee injury again at such a young age would be a huge blow to him.
Do you feel, if it's possible, we should maybe send them back, cancel the loan early and cut the losses with them and look to get a replacement in January?
Well, I think the wording was we're in contact with Feyenoord. Is it Feyenoord? I think he's came from. So they're his parent club. They ultimately will decide on the operation, where he does his rehab, all that sort of situation. It all depends. The devil's in the detail. Is there break clauses within the loan agreement? That sort of situation. So I think personally, if you're losing them for the season, it's just one of these things. It's a brutal game. You send them back to Feyenoord. You maybe revisit it in the future when he's fitting well. That's obviously, we're looking worst case scenario in that situation. But I think it would be an area that I would want to bring in somebody that could almost come in and hit the ground running, because he was able to cover right back, left back, and central defence. And I think in a squad that's lacking physicality and a lot of quality, he certainly was showing early positive signs. So I think if he's not going to be in an ideal world, he's only out for 6 to 8 weeks, but I fear it'll be 6 to 8 months rather than anything else.
It kind of reminds me of Cortez's injury last season, and there was talk about whether he goes back. I think we probably had an inkling that we were going to go back in for him anyway and permanently take him, as we've arranged for next season. I believe he'll permanently sign. Then let's talk about the Václav Černý. He's a player that I was doubtful in the beginning. He had a couple of good early goals, and then he seemed to go on a cold spell. But the last month or so, 6 weeks, I feel he's been one of our most important players. So he had a few things to say at the press conference today. A bit cheeky of the interviewers. Or I can't remember who asked the question, but it was whether he wanted to stay here long term. What did you think of his answer to that?
It'd have been funny if he'd said, "No, I don't want to stay in Scotland. It's a terrible league. I don't want to play on plastic pitches." I mean, he just gave the well coached answer with regard to that. He's not going to say anything else. I mean, I'm sure Abdallah Sima was asked a similar question towards the back end of last season, and Abdallah Sima was like, "Yeah, I would love to stay," but it's just they're just giving a stock answer with regard to that. I think he comes across as an experienced player and an experienced person handling the media. So I don't take a great. I think he did say that it's very early to be having that. I mean, it sums up the standard of questions that come up at the press conference on a weekly basis. That sort of thing. I know you've got to ask a question, but surely to goodness there's something better than that.
I think my camera was playing up there. I don't know if that came across to everyone else. On my screen it was. He said he's working on being more dangerous and more effective. Again, you've covered it there, Cammy. It's stock answers for these things. I don't read too much, especially players' pre-match press conferences. There's been a few, I guess, tasty ones after.
Right, we've lost Billy here.
I'm sorry, everyone. My computer seems to be playing up a wee bit. I'll try and get Cammy back. I think he's here as well. Sorry, Cammy. I don't know if I'm just jiggling too much for my camera and it's doing something to it. But are you back?
I'm here. I was having a wee panic there that I was going to have to wing this for the next 45 minutes. But it's brought back flashbacks to a post-match that we done earlier in the season where we had similar technical difficulties. But I think we were talking about Václav Černý, so I'm happy to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've as I was saying, mate, I've been impressed with him in recent times. He's still playing for his national team, which is good for us as well. He's been kept busy over the kind of international break that maybe some of the players. I was listening to Heart and Hands preview show, and they talked about how should the players be going away on their holidays and getting relaxation, or should they be in training? And I feel at the moment, we're reading some things during the week. We haven't scored a goal from a set piece this season. We're one of the lowest, I think, away goal scorers in the league. I'd be quite happy if the players were brought back in at least earlier than, they're not just away in their jollies. What about yourself? What do you feel about that?
I think I'm not really too sure how much time off they did have. I mean, I think it's funny. I was watching another podcast, the Gary Neville podcast, and they were talking about Marcus Rashford and Casemiro going away to America. Similar, well, not similar, but do you know what I mean? It's like they're sitting 14th in the league. Should they be going on a jolly sort of situation? You just don't know what's going on Monday to Friday. I mean, I think they've probably had they've played the friendly, I think last Tuesday, I think it was. I think they've probably had 3 or 4 days off after that. The manager, they'll probably say they're looking into this schedule. We're going to be playing every 3 days over the next. I mean, I sound like Philip Clement at a press conference. We're going into a busy schedule, that sort of thing. That's the sort of response. He is very big on his sports science and all that sort of stuff. So I think maybe players that are Oscar Cortez, I think Rabbi Matondo, Ridvan, I'm not sure if the same break would have applied to them, because obviously we're trying to get them back. Is it available for us, sort of thing? So I was always frustrated, to be honest with you. You go back to even date times under Gerrard, we were off for there was a 2-week international break, and the players and management were away for a week. So I think Philip Clement is actually giving them less time off than they've had previously. But I do think that the set piece threat, etc., that's the sort of thing. I mean, you're only missing a handful of players on international duty, so you've still got a lot of the players that are going to be involved. As much as you've got players away on international duty, Nico Raskin's not away, Dessers isn't away, Jeffy's not away, like Dio's away, but you've still got enough players to be working with, particularly the areas. And I think when we're not creating massive amount of chances, this is where the small gains should come in. I've said this before. If you've maybe limitations in the creative side, then work on your set pieces. I mean, they were talking about there's always this question about set piece coaches and all that sort of stuff. But old school me would say, historically, the manager was always the one that had the manager and his coaches come up with variety with regard to set pieces. So they're the type of things we might have worked on them during the international break. Hopefully tomorrow we see a couple of goals from set pieces, and because when Rangers get a corner now, it's a standing joke around me in the stadium that nothing's going to come from this. But international breaks, I think they're entitled to 2 or 3 days off, but I don't think anything longer than that.
No, I think I agree with you, and that's why I brought it up, mate, because they've got a lot to work on. Now, some good news from what the manager was saying, because it looks like we've got a few players back. Ridvan back, apparently in contention. Matondo, though, is he picked up something? I think the manager was saying he's not going to be available for the game tomorrow. But you've also got, I'm going to pull my notes up again, mate, sorry. Ross McCausland, he's back as well. So, got other options on the wing. My frustration has been we're playing probably our best number 10 out on the left wing. And I'd like to get some, wingers back to be playing so he can move in, because I hate this square peg for round holes kind of thing. I'd like to just have players that play in the position that they're good at and kind of go for there. So, have I missed anyone else out? Who's back?
So. I don't think so. I think Matondo's picked up another. It's not a serious injury, I think the manager said, but he's picked up a bump. He's just one of these players, a high earner that is never available, and that's the frustration. We still have too many players that are getting paid a lot of money that aren't consistently available, and I'm sure it's frustrating to the manager as much as anything. But Matondo, Ridvan. Listen, I like Ridvan, but I think it's Jeffy's shirt now for me. But you then have the option, if Ridvan can stay fit, you've got the option that Ridvan can play left back, and you can, in certain games, you can play Jeffrey ahead of him, and then you could play Bayrami in the number 10. And I think we are going to have a lot of football, so there will be opportunities. I mean, what we're going into Saturday, Thursday, Sunday, Wednesday, it is really, really busy over the next few weeks. But without being negative, Ridvan's Rangers career, Matondo's Rangers career has been stop-start. They were both signed, I think, the same summer, and it's been 5 games injured, 5 games injured sort of situation. It's great to have more options available, but I'll wait and see with regard to how long that lasts. Oscar Cortez is obviously about to rejoin the group, but again, he's been out since the first day of the season, so you're talking like 3 to 4 months out. It's going to take him probably a wee bit of time but maybe by the time the cup final comes round, he might be an option off the bench, because I think you've signed Bajrami to play as your number 10, and it's the square peg round hole has always frustrated me about Rangers. We done it, I said on another podcast, not comparing, but Alexei Mikhailichenko, for those of that age, well, he came to Rangers as a centre midfield player, and we turned him into a left-sided midfield player. It's a historical thing. Rangers sign players having shone in a position, and then we ask them to play somewhere that's not their most favoured. But the wide areas are Ross McCausland for me is a right-sided player off the bench when Czerny's getting tired, sort of thing. I'm not a fan of Ross McCausland on the left-hand side at all. He tries his best, but I don't think he looks comfortable in that role at all. I'd rather have a better balance and a natural left-sided player, which Jeffrey would be able to offer. But I think he's very much the first pick at left back at the moment.
You reminded me of Walter Smith's second spell, mate, where he turned everyone into a centre half, didn't he? So it's been you're right. It's been a long running problem for us, and I hope we can get to see Bayrami in the number 10. I also would like to see, only because these games are going to be limited with not being the European squad, I'd like to see Hagi come on, maybe not starting games, but come on ahead of Dowell at least, to see what he's playing for his national team, but he can't get in ahead of, for me, a very average player in Kieran Dowell.
I think the last game against Hearts was a bit of that second half. I'm still suffering PTSD from it, but it was, you were bringing substitutions on, and Hagi was sitting there on the bench, and he's just played 90 minutes there during the week. I am exactly the same as you. I think that he's a player that can see a pass. And in a Rangers team that is lacking creativity, he's the type of player that I think should certainly, and it's not an assassination of Kieran Dowell, but I just think that if you've got the two of them, it's a no-brainer. I think that, I've said this on pods before, Hagi's most successful spell in the 55 season was playing on the right-hand side. It wasn't as a right winger, but it was the role that Gerrard had him and Ryan Kent. They were sort of the inside 10s. So I think that he could play the position that Czerny's playing in the latter stages of games as well. So, you could have Bayrami as your 10, and you could have Hagi playing on the right-hand side. The manager has obviously, he said all the things with regard to Hagi, getting him back into the fold, but I think the red card seems to have like stopped a lot of Hagi's development, but I would hope in the next few weeks. But I think not being in the European squad, next weekend we go to St Johnstone, he has to be involved off the back of an away trip in Europe, surely. But we'll see what happens tomorrow, but I think Hagi definitely deserves more opportunities. Not necessarily starting, but certainly off the bench.
So the manager also talked about Niels Koppen and his I guess, improved situation of the club being now an executive position. It was a strange one for me. It's a strange one for me in the same way that the manager's contract extension came out of nowhere for we don't know what reasons. It could have been others were sniffing about, but it seems like a weird time to make this improved contract for Niels Koppen. I would say the jury's still out. He's brought in some good players. He's brought in ones that haven't worked out. He certainly came with a good reputation. I maybe was a wee bit surprised he wasn't given this position, director of football initially. But the whole thing with there not being, as far as we're aware, a chief exec in place, he could be taking up this position and someone could come in, now or in 6 months' time and decide he's not the man for the job. It just seemed a really strange time to make this change. What do you think?
I must admit, when the news broke earlier in the week, it was a bit like, is that a parody account? Without being dismissive of Niels Koppen, I think it's just doing things in the wrong order for me. He must be impressing a lot of people, those people that make the decisions with regard to giving them the job. He must be doing a good job behind the scenes, but I don't think he's even been with the club for a year. It's fair play. Fair play to get such an internal promotion across such a short space of time. I think that I hope he's successful. I was hoping that we were going to be bringing in people with a bit more experience in a particular role. He's been a scout. We've gave him the head the director of recruitment. That was obviously the role that was split with Craig Robertson. He now appears to be, his responsibilities appear to be very, very, very wide. So it's going to be interesting to see the structures beneath him that come in. But it certainly strikes me as there may be managerial change at some point in the future. But I think he's going to be like overseeing the whole structure as much as anything else. But I think it's not a criticism of Niels Koppen. It's a criticism of how we have went about the process and how we've actually, it's just that nothing really makes a lot of sense, to be honest with you. I just think that it's a bit of a head scratcher. He talks. I'm quite sceptical of people that talk a good game. I think actions will speak louder. He said all the standard getting Rangers men in and people that have played with the club and all this sort of stuff, and it's very easy to see. I just want people in that are good at their job. It doesn't necessarily matter if they've played 300 games. It would be nice if you can get people, but they have to just be good at their job. But he gave a good interview, and I think all of his comms have been good. He's obviously that's one of those. If you were if he was getting interviewed by you, you would be probably very impressed. But we'll see how things play out.
It's going to be interesting to see what kind of what he actually gets to oversee. Is it just going to be purely focused on the recruitment side? Is he going to be doing a bit like what Gerrard came in and he changed the whole, the training facilities and upgraded all them and made us more kind of modern? But that was like, he had the persona and he had the history of being a top Premiership player. And I think we were all fully behind Gerrard when he came in and was making all these kind of changes behind the scenes. I don't know if Koppen has that kind of gravitas even within the club, but as you say, he might give a great interview and he's convinced whoever has made this decision, because mate, we still don't have a chairman, we don't have a chief exec. Lord knows who's there is going to be, and we're appointing these kind of positions without, I would say, two more important roles. But we don't know. These things could be lined up. I heard today people suggesting that someone has to maybe in a position where they need to give a long notice period because they're in these kind of executive roles where they get 6 months to a year notice period, which I think I would hate if I decided I was going to be leaving and going somewhere else. But that's I guess the way it works.
I think to be honest with you, Billy, I think they've sort of other people have said that I think they expect a chairman to come before a chief executive. So I read one or two bits and pieces with regard to that. We've got an AGM coming up, I think, a day's time. I think I'm curious as to how they're going to fill all the seats at the AGM at the table. To be honest with you, because there can't actually be enough people to actually sit in the chairs. But I would hope in advance of the AGM, or certainly at the AGM, that more detail is given, because as much as there's lots of concerns about the football side of it, the overall structure of the club is not good enough. And in order for it, doesn't you could bring Pep Guardiola in and he would probably get an initial tune out of this group of players. But the overall structures and everything has to be in place around the club to actually get a well-functioning football club. And we've not been a well-functioning football club for a long time, and that's why we're in. But I think John's a bit echoes a bit of my thoughts. I think that internal promotions, we've done this to death, I think, a wee bit over the last 12, 18 months with regard to certain people, and it hasn't. James Bisgrove, Craig Robertson, internal promotions. I think there's other people not within the sort of well-known public, but I think within the club, I think this has happened in a lot of areas. And I get it happens within organisations and that sort of thing. That it's all scrutinised all the more because we're not winning. If you're winning games of football, a lot of the winning games and lifting trophies and that sort of stuff, I think that's what it all comes back to be honest.
So there was a comment further up with regards to Philippe Clement and why is he still here. Sorry, I don't remember the commenter, but why is the manager still here? Well, tomorrow, I believe, if things don't go well, could be his Aberdeen moment. And remember the game when I think Dessers gets booed off. Was it 2-1 or 2? It was Beale's last game in charge anyway, and I feel that's where we're kind of at. Mentioned a few weeks ago, we're just kicking the can down the road. But why I bring this up in any reason is because of the Belgian national team's kind of current position now. In Belgium, Philippe Clement's stock is probably still very high. He's not doing well with us at the moment, but certainly he's well regarded in Belgium. And I'm reading headlines like Courtois says he'll never play for Domenico Tedesco again, and there is high likelihood that he's not going to be the Belgian manager for long, if he's even still in place. Would this just be, are we just wishful thinking, mate? Because I think most of the fans would be happy to see Clement move on. We probably can't afford to pay him off. This could be a glorious, all the worlds line up and we manage to get rid of him without having to pay him off. I see you nodding when I said, is this wishful thinking?
I think I've said that on more than one occasion to people this week with regard to that. I think it's a bit of an easy link to make. I think he's the head of the Belgian football. I think he's worked with him previously when he was at one of his former clubs. I would be amazed if who have they had? Roberto Martinez, when he had Thierry Henry working with him. Tedesco, who was obviously the Leipzig manager when we played against them. I think they'll be looking for somebody that's a bit more a la Thierry Henry, somebody that's got a bit more personality, somebody that's maybe more young and up and coming. I think that's the road that Belgium. So I think, yeah, in the ideal world, the new contract has a release clause within it where anybody that's interested needs to pay us £5 million. They give us £5 million and then we bring in somebody for nothing and then we've got £5 million. But that's what I talk about wishful wishful thinking. I don't think he is the type. I think you spoke there, Billy, about Courtois. I think that's probably a dressing room with Courtois, De Bruyne, Lukaku, Trossard. These guys will probably have a lot of influence. It wouldn't surprise me a bit. You go back to all these years ago at Chelsea when Lampard and Terry and all these guys used to get managers sacked, and then they used to have an influence on who came in. That's what I think that those players that are senior in Belgium, I don't think they'll be having conversations among themselves and saying, quite fancy Philippe Clement, he would be a good Belgium manager. It's just, I think, wishful thinking. The next international is not till March. So I think Belgium have got plenty of time to make their decisions with regard to that. So I don't think, I think Philippe Clement's Rangers' future will be a lot clearer come the 3rd of January. I think that we are approaching a 6-7 week spell with cup finals and 2 games against Celtic and another game against Aberdeen. So maybe not the 3rd of January. The middle of January, I think we play Aberdeen again. So by the middle of January, you could potentially be in a good position. You could have got yourself back into it with a cup win and a win against Celtic in the league, and then a win against Aberdeen. That's the positive in me. But equally, it could go the other way, and then the noise that you said earlier about Dundee United tomorrow. I mean, if Dundee United beat us tomorrow, we're down to 4th, and then the atmosphere at the end of that Aberdeen game is as toxic as I can ever remember Ibrox being. I really hope that's not the case tomorrow, but we just have to wait and see. But I think, to get back to your original point, I'll be amazed if Philippe Clement gets the national team gig for Belgium.
Do you think he still survives the season here with us?
If the next 6-7 weeks go the wrong way, I don't think he would see the end of the season. I think he'd be gone by the end of January, to be perfectly honest with you. I think he's here till the end of January, and then you would be looking at potentially an interim manager or something along those lines, and bringing some, because I think bringing another manager in for the last 3 or 4 months of the season is difficult when you're essentially inheriting. I think you would want a pre-season. I think John's who would want to take on the situation. I live in eternal optimism that, and I said this to Scotty on another pod, I live in eternal optimism that we can somehow get to the cup final and retain the Premier Sports Cup, get the monkey off the back with regard to beating Celtic, and then go to the 2nd of January and beat them at Ibrox. That would be a big marker with regard to, I think, what Philippe Clement needs to try to get the Rangers, support back, which I think is going to be very difficult, because a lot of us have not even made our mind up. I think we've got our concerns about how this movie is going to play out, because we've seen it before. So I think end of January, if it all goes wrong, I think we'd be looking for a replacement. But I hope that isn't the case, because this continual rinse and repeat of managers. I was always proud as a Rangers fan of the murals in the Blue Room, where there was hardly any Rangers managers. The last few years, it's just, it's just crazy. So my wee boy was born in 2017, and he's probably had more Rangers managers in the 7 years of his life than I've had in my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how unsettling we are as a football club, and there's so much change and consistent change that, but if something's not working, and it is a results business. And Philip Clement knows that. As much as he talks at the press conference today about this is a long-term, I've committed my future, and he didn't want to talk about the Belgium job. If he got offered the Belgium job, he would take it. I have no doubt at all with regard to that. But I don't think that's going to happen. But it's just, we just have to be very cliched, and tomorrow we just have to beat Dundee United, and then the European games, I think, are a bit of a free hit because we're in a reasonable position with regard to that. But the next 5 games, I think, in the league, I think we've got 5 league games before we play them on the 2nd of January. It might be more than that. You've got to get 15 points. But we can't. I can't. It's Scotty shared that. You look at it on paper. They fixtures look great on paper, but unfortunately, games of football aren't played on paper, and we're no good enough to bank those 15 points. But aye, so I've went on a wee bit there, Billy. But it's we just have to start winning tomorrow and then take it from there.
Well, you bust my bubble. I get a wee bit, Cammy, because I was all for that. This will be perfect. Belgium will come and offer them the job. We'll still appoint an interim manager to the end of the season, but then we'll get somebody we really want in the summer. And I think that thing about not wanting to take over mid-season, I think was it the Man United manager? Is it Ruben Amorim? He mentioned that he asked to wait to the end of the season to take the job at Man United, but they told him no, you need to come in now. So it definitely is a thing that you want to. You don't want to be shackled with the half of the bad season, even if you do make an improvement. Clement certainly got us into. I mean, this round about this time last year that he got us on that run that made us go back to the top of the league. So, but again, it fell all well. We know what happened.
Just quickly, what I meant with regard to free hits, I don't think the European games will define Philip Clement's future.
No.
I should have probably explained that a wee bit better. Ideally, we go to Nice on Thursday night and we win the game. So before we play Spurs and Man United, that you've essentially qualified.
Yeah,
that's the ideal situation. I mean, I think the fact that we got a positive result over in Greece, that was a result I didn't expect. Out of the 2 away fixtures coming up, Nice was the one that I thought we had more opportunity to actually get a result, and I still believe that. So domestic results will define what happens with Philip Clement. That's what I should have said a bit better. So you're spot on, John.
It's I don't like it when we say free hits, and I don't like it when we say European games will take care of themselves as if we'll just magically turn up and win. It would be great to effectively be qualified before playing the 2 big English teams, because I don't see us getting much. I know Tottenham's going to be at home, and we don't know what team they're going to send up. Maybe they think they've already qualified as well, and they send the second string with it. But the second string's probably still going to be pretty strong as well. And then Man United away, I don't expect, but maybe that's something that could be what do you call it? An unexpected good result there. But I'm not really expecting it. I'm just going to haver on a wee bit now. Now, before we move on and talk about the game tomorrow, was there any other Rangers news the last week I've not brought up yet, Cammy?
I don't think so. No, I think it's been there's been an international break, but there's always Rangers news. But it's the football that matters, and getting back to playing in this schedule of games that we've got coming up. But there's nothing really I can think of, unless anybody in the comments has got anything that they want us to discuss.
I'll let some come in, but we'll move on to talk about the Dundee United game. So we're at home. It's a weird kind of fixture list day because Aberdeen and Celtic not playing on the same day, but later on in the day. Maybe Aberdeen kick off at the same time. I know the Celtic game's at night, so weird one that it's all different kind of times, all split up. Jim Goodwin's doing pretty well at Dundee United. That's not something I like saying because I'm not a massive fan of him. I think it's well known what team he supports, and it's not us. But having come up this season, to get them in a position where they're fourth in the league at the moment, Cammy, you said it earlier on, if they win, we would be down in fourth. That's an unthinkable position, and I think an untenable position if that occurs that way. I don't believe it will. I think we will certainly have enough to put a few goals by them, but there's no getting away from that. They've had a good start to the season.
They have. I mean, I think it's well known where his leanings come from, but we just have to go out. We've had a break. You go out and win the game. And if we can go, I always say in these games, getting a goal early, but we got a goal early against Hearts, and then it's not even getting the first goal. I think that's the issue. It's getting the second goal. I think you get the second goal. I think the players can potentially relax a wee bit and try to actually play a wee bit. I know it's just where we are at this moment in time. If you could get 2 goals up in half an hour tomorrow, then I think we could go on and score 3 or 4. But we've not done that this season, and that's why we've won games, so many games 1-0 and 2-0, and it's all been low scoring. Bar I think the one game at Hampden earlier in the season against Ross County.
Yeah.
But I think it's we just need to. He's came out with trying the tension of the Ibrox crowd. I think it was yesterday he made reference to trying to get the fans on the players' backs, and we all know what Ibrox can be like. Mm-hmm. But if the players go out with the right attitude and the players go out with the right tempo and the players stick the ball in the back of the net a couple of times in the first half an hour, the crowd, as much as we're maybe sitting there with doubts about the manager and individual players, the crowd will support the team, because we don't want to go and watch Rangers grind games and play certain brands of football and scrape it 1-0. We want to go and see Rangers win comfortably and win by 3 or 4, but I think it's on the players to effectively keep the crowd. And without sounding like Philip Clement a year ago when he spoke about the synergy between the support and the players, I think that there isn't a synergy between the support and the players. I think we're almost back to where we were 12 months ago, and maybe even in a worse position than we were a year ago. But that can very quickly change if you can win 5 or 6 domestic games on the bounce. That's the problem. We have been very much 2 steps forward, 3 steps back so far this season. And big games, going to Kilmarnock, going to Aberdeen, haven't turned up when you played Celtic. That's why we are in the position that we're in. And only the players and the manager can change that. And if they change that, the crowd will then gain a wee bit of confidence and start to, no saying start to believe again, but just start to think that there is progress. But it all comes back to the players and the manager getting the performances and getting the results on the park.
Because Cammy, I think we've got decent players, individual good players. Well, I didn't want to do a predicted lineup, but I did want to talk about a few kind of key positions for tomorrow. We've lost Casemiro. I actually think I preferred him at the centre-half role and even the left-back role. I don't know if he did too much for me when he got a chance at right-back. Right-back tomorrow, though, I fully expect, although I'm not wanting it, I fully expect to see James Tavernier there, but I think that would be a mistake for the manager not to play Dujon Sterling there. What do you think?
This is where the schedule comes into play. I think Tav maybe doesn't start in France on Thursday night, so I think that it's going to be. This is where Big Casa getting injured is such a loss, because he can play across the 3 positions. So I think you're very much going to be Tav. I don't think Dujon Sterling has proved that he has the ability to play every 3 or 4 days. and I don't think Tav has the fitness and the capacity to play every 3 or 4 days. So I think it's going to be Tav starts tomorrow, Dujon starts against Nice, Tav maybe starts against
St Johnstone,
midweek against Kilmarnock. It's going to be, I think, the central defence will pretty much be Souttar and one other. Proper will rotate with Balogun. I think the only constant in the back line, I think, is going to be Butland, Souttar, and probably Jeffrey. I think that Sterling and Tav, rightly or wrongly, because Tav's performances have not been great, and it doesn't make me any. I think Sterling has to start the cup final. You spoke earlier about the Spurs game. We will know when the lineup is announced on the Thursday night against Spurs. If Tav starts on the Thursday night, I don't think he starts the cup final, because I don't think Sterling will be able to play. I just don't think, because he's one of these players that's picked up lots of niggly injuries as well. And I think, with regard to, we're jumping a wee bit about here, but the games against Celtic, you can't just keep doing the same things. If you keep insanity and all that is continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results. So I think that would be very much it's weeks away. But I think that Sterling has to start, or Big Casa, one of the two had to start the cup final at right back. But I think up until that point, I think we're in a position where Dujon and Tav will rotate, and I do expect Tav to start at right back tomorrow.
Yeah, same as myself. Souttar's obviously had a great kind of couple of games with Scotland. It was a fantastic pass for the winning goal the other night there as well. I'd like to see more of that in a Rangers jersey. Making these, the kind of Connor Goldson, that one in for Defoe. These kind of the passes, just to make us less predictable is the main thing for me. I imagine they'll see Robin Propper there tomorrow, mainly because, again, Balogun can't, it's not his fault, it's his age. He can't play every single game. And I think you're right, Jeffrey is probably nailed on, unless if Francis giving Ridvan a start, but I could see him coming on Ridvan later in the game. The midfield, for me, you've mentioned in previous pods, mate, that this number 6 role is a requirement in January. And I'm fully expecting to see Nico Raskin, Connor Barron and Diomande there. What is not working with them? Because I think individually, as I say, we've got good players. And Connor Barron I've loved, but what is not working in that midfield?
I thought, to be honest with you, I thought the away game, Olympiacos, I thought the three of them worked really well, but it's a different ask in an away game in Europe to what we face domestically. I think it's very much a 6 and 2 8s. I think more when it's the three of them. I don't think Diomande is a number 10. So you just have to. I think that is going to be the three. I think we're looking ahead to lineups and cup final and that sort of. That's the three I would expect to be starting the cup final in the middle of the park, because it structurally can be better, but I don't think it's the ideal three in games like tomorrow. I think it will be what we're forced to go with, and I think what the manager will play. But I think it's Diomande has a lot to prove. I think you can see glimpses of talent, but we haven't seen. And I am frustrated, Billy, that we've spent £4.5 million, £5 million on this guy, and I don't think we really know how to get the best out of him. Where is his best sort of role? I don't think he's a number 6. I think he's a sort of 8. I think he's got the capacity to score goals from midfield, as he showed us in his early Rangers career, but it's just no happened. But they're going to get plenty of opportunities over the next wee while to try to build up a relationship, because I think that's the first choice. The first choice 3. I think the comment there about the ideal opportunity to start Hagi, I don't disagree with that at all. But I think it would be very surprising if he goes from not getting on at all against Hearts to then starting the next game when he's been away on international duty and probably not back in the training centre until like Wednesday, Thursday of this week. I totally agree with that. I think if Hagi was involved and properly integrated within the side, I think it wouldn't be a bad thing at all. But I don't expect to see it happen.
No, I think I agree with you. I would like to see it. Don't think it will happen. Just with how the manager has been with his selection. The last position I wanted to touch on was Danilo being available. Do we need a change at that centre forward position? Does Dessers need competition to bring out the best in him? And do you expect to see Danilo start tomorrow?
I don't expect to see him start tomorrow. I thought he would have potentially started the last game against Hearts, and he didn't. So I don't see, and that was off the back of the European game on the Thursday night. I thought that was the ideal situation. I think Danilo had played I think he'd maybe played that midweek for the B team. I thought it was the ideal opportunity to give him an hour. I expect Dessers to start, but I don't think Cyril Dessers, and no turning this into the last few minutes on Cyril Dessers, I don't think it's physically possible for him to play every single game, start every single game over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks. So Danilo has to be given opportunities, because we don't have Igaman's disappeared off the face of the earth. Other than coming on and getting a yellow card in Olympiacos, he doesn't appear to be an option. So you can't just keep running on Dessers. I think you have to give Danilo opportunities. And I think, will he ever be a fully participating footballer? His Rangers career has been stop-start with injuries since he joined. So the jury's out with regard to that. But I think in glimpses he shows more movement and ability to show what we potentially need in a Rangers centre forward. But that's not to say that he is going to be 100% better. I just think he offers a bit more movement, and I think Dessers starts tomorrow. Danilo hopefully gets 20-30 minutes, and the game's done and dusted. That's my wish for tomorrow.
I think I just want to see a change, mate, because whatever it is we're seeing, it isn't working, or it hasn't worked. The manager doesn't want to change his formation. He'll live or die as the manager by that choice. But I think just seeing a change with the centre forward position as well as a talismanic, if that's the right word, position for Rangers. We've always kind of loved to have that, Jelavic, McCoy, Stately. I hope I wasn't wrong putting Jelavic in that category, but
I would just pick you up. You missed Morelos. That's the
Morelos, yeah. Somebody that leads the line, and I'm not to say Danilo is definitely going to be able to do that, but I don't think Dessers is. I heard a comment that Dessers got so many goals last season. It's because he played every single game. Obviously he's got the skill to still score, but he's. I would like to see it mixed up a wee bit, as I say, mate. Just a bit of a change. That's all I've really got.
Sorry to jump in, but Wallace has spoke about bringing Lovelace in. I think he's more likely to get opportunities off the left-hand side. So I think if that was an opportunity to get Bayrami into the number 10 position, I don't expect Zach Lovelace to start tomorrow. But I think I would rather see Zach Lovelace come on the left-hand side than Ross McCausland latter part of games, because he's got a bit of pace and whatever he looks. He's played on that left side. Before. I don't see Zach Lovelace being Rangers centre forward. I think he's very much more a left-sided attacker from what I've seen on him. But he is a player that I think would be good to, because I think you speak, Billy, about a change. I think we've had a bit of change, but I think some of us are still a bit tired of certain individuals, because I think it's just because you've made your mind up and you're seeing them and you think, they're going to get us goals, but are they going to have what we need when it really, really matters? And I think that's at the back of a lot of people's minds. So I think that's just where we are, and we haven't recruited a number 9 across the last 2 windows, and that's for me. I thought that was an area that we should have had as a priority.
Well, it's certainly not a nailed-on starting number 9. I think not by Rami. I hear you think of something and the name goes. The Moroccan guy. Egeman, sorry. So he was centre forward, but certainly was a potential rather than nailed on. Going to be starting every game. Look, I'm fine to leave it where we are now. That's all I kind of really wanted to cover personally. Is there anything else you wanted to mention about the game tomorrow or anything else this week?
I just want us to win. I just want Rangers to win tomorrow, and then if Rangers can win, showing a bit of intensity, a bit of guile, creating chances, and if we can stick a few of the chances into the back of the net, you want to score for us. See if we could score for a set piece, score for a corner, score for a free kick, score for a corner, all that sort of stuff. Tick all the boxes off tomorrow, 5 o'clock tomorrow night. You've won by 3 or 4 goals, and everybody can see has enjoyed a positive performance. We're very much in a one game at a time. I've said this for weeks. We've spoke about the Celtic games and the cup final and stuff like that because it's formed part of the conversation. But we just have to. I hope that the manager stops talking about players just being in the building. The time for talking is over now for Philippe Clement. Václav Černý said that in his press conference today, which I was pleased to hear coming from the player. The manager has to sing from the same hymn sheet. Don't talk about they're just in the building. They've all been here. They've all been training for a while. They've all got their IKEA furniture made up and all that sort of stuff. Just start winning games of football and start showing us something and giving us something to cling to for a bit of positivity over the weeks and months ahead.
I agree with you, mate. I do think we will win. I just worry about the manner of the win, whether it's going to be another Hearts. I mean, how raging were we after the post-match in that game? When it's a win, but it just was the manner of the win is showing the kind of the frailties of this team as a collective, at least. See the one thing I would say, and I've said this before, I've watched Rangers teams under Walter Smith, and I've seen performances like that, and a lot of people watching will have seen Rangers with far, far better players getting beat 3-0 at home to Dundee United or getting beat at home at Hearts or whatever. But the difference with the Walter Smith and other Rangers, Walter Smith, Alec McLeish Rangers teams is when we played Celtic, we turned up, we won cup finals. That's why results and performances or the performance against Hearts, that's why it's magnified so much, because you're not winning the big games. Games like that, people will go, 3 points and up the road. We're not in that place now. We have to get 3 points, but we also have to see something on the park to give us a bit of hope. And that's it comes back to the players and the manager, and the only way they can restore a wee bit of belief and a bit of faith from the supporters is by starting to show it. And if they're having that conversation within the training ground, that's great, but they need to go in the park and show it. Yeah. Well, thank you, Cammy, for coming on with me again. It's always good to chat. It's always good to get the Rangers news done. Hopefully we'll be back next week. Apologies again for the technical difficulties earlier on in the pod, but we managed to get through it, Cammy. Well done. So thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you for all your comments. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please listen to us on the usual podcast networks as well if you like to listen to pods. But all that's left to say is I hope your team wins tomorrow, and every night is the Rangers Journal night. So good night, everyone.